Let's jump right into the conversation here now with Malaki Ugumadu, who is a legal practitioner. He joins us right here in the studio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Clearly, reactions have trailed Mr. President's proclamation or declaration of a state of emergency, with senior advocates of Nigeria, even the NBA, as Markwe highlighted to us earlier, that the president was out of line. But if you can give us an idea, what should be or what is the constitutional steps towards the president declaring a state of emergency?
That's right. The power to declare a state of emergency within the framework of our constitutional democracy is in Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. It's a very straightforward provision in terms of what the powers are and how it can be invoked. So it says that the president can, by a proclamation published in the official gazette of the Federation, proclaim a state of emergency in the Federation or any part of the Federation thereof. It goes down in subsection 3 of section 305 to highlight the circumstances, the situations in which the president can make such declarations, including when the Federation is at war, when there are imminent danger of war, when there is a natural disaster or a threat of that, and so on and so forth. But that proclamation, according to the same constitution, will cease to be if the National Assembly, within a period of 2 days, if the National Assembly is in session, or 10 days if they are not in session, if they fail to ratify by a 2/3 majority of their members. So this is largely the circumstances in which the state of emergency can be declared in the Federation or any part thereof.
However, there is a gap.
Yep.
And that gap is that when the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria declares a state of emergency, there is no, clearly, of course, the president takes over the affairs of that state and all that, but there is no clear provision as to what the role of the governor should be. And there is no clear provision that says that the president can declare elected officials of a state suspended or removed from office or whatever the term is.
I cannot agree with you any less. In fact, and I know you have been following the discussions, that is actually what is, giving rise to the controversies since yesterday when this proclamation was made. There is no express use of the word in the provisions of the Constitution vesting that power on the president. Please, let's use the proper word, to suspend and not remove. There is no such express provision to suspend the governor, no less members of the State House of Assembly. But the question can be asked, what then will be the effect of such declaration? In the same vein, no word or phrase is used in the same section 305 vesting onto the president the right to appoint a particular person or a group of persons to take over the mantle of leadership in those states. But we have the tradition, we have instances of declaration of states of emergency. And in those instances, when the sitting governors were suspended, you have had appointments of essentially military officers, whether serving or retired. You remember the case of, I remember Ekiti very well, where I think it was Brigadier Olurin or so. You remember during, that was Obasanjo's era. When President Jonathan made the same proclamations of state of emergency in the 3 northern states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, there was no such appointment because the governors were not suspended. So here we are, and as we deepen this culture of democracy, as we seek to find the real essence of our democratization efforts, which by and large must be focused on the capacity of Nigerians to enthrone leadership, to elect their leaders, which is what makes us a republic.
The questions are going to, continue. The conversation is going to continue. This has happened a few times, as you have said. How come no one ever really pointed out this gap? But Markwe, over to you.
We also have in the studios here Mr. Peter Amer, who is the National Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties. They have also issued a statement now saying that Tinubu's constitutional assault a dangerous precedent for Nigeria's democracy. That is the title of the statement which you issued yesterday. Good morning and welcome to the program. This is what we have now heard. It came in as breaking news yesterday, the president addressing the nation and declaring a state of emergency. And it will seem very swiftly, you have also, issued a statement saying the selective approach of the state of emergency decree in Rivers State while ignoring other states plagued by similar or even worse security challenges raises questions about the motivations behind such a decision. You go on to say the Constitution is clear. A governor can only be removed from office through impeachment by the State House of Assembly, death, resignation, or completion of tenure. Nowhere does it grant the president the power to suspend a governor or declare a state of emergency as a tool for political suppression. You are reading this as a tool for political suppression. But other lawyers argue, there's some lawyers who argue that the president is within his right because a state of emergency does not envisage the upholding of democratic institutions while that has been declared.
You see, people could read the law in whatever form they like to be able to justify the opinion they hold or whatever, interest they want to protect. My brother in Lagos has actually laid everything down. There's nothing to hide. He has talked about Section 305, not giving the president any authority to remove the state governor or to suspend, or to suspend the members of the State House of Assembly. That's only when you find in Section 11, subsection 4 and 5, where that power was given to the State Assembly, the National Assembly, to be able to intervene in State Assembly when there is crisis and they can no longer, manage their affairs. And that is different from what we have today. You have Section 305. The president can use Section 305, declare state of emergency, just like Jonathan did in Yobe, Adama, and Bruno, and allow constitutional authority to continue to operate. What he needs to do, that means he has to put more focus of attention and deploy more military authorities to the place to protect whatever that is happening in place as the chief executive of the country. But one thing that is there's Section 188 that has clearly stated how a governor and his deputy can be impeached, can be removed from office. You can't have a situation where we have this arbitrary use of power, where we have a situation where we have a president who just read a speech, and for 10 minutes he was blaming the state governor. If there was nothing said, this same executive state governor was almost shot when he was walking down the street of his state. No statement was made about that. Look, the challenge we have in this our democracy, if we don't protect it, there have been judgment in 2006, there have been judgment in 2013, and regards the removal of a sitting executive governor from office. The Supreme Court clearly said that no president have that power to remove somebody that has been elected. It's not an appointee of the federal government. Neither is he an appointed person by the president. So the president, what the president should have done was to allow this. There's a court case that has been stated to give judgment on the issue of the River State House of Assembly. There's an impeachment notice that has been served by the State House of Assembly. So we needed to allow this democratic process unfold and then take a proper course so that Nigerians can know and learn from this process. There's no war in River State as far as I'm concerned to demand such a state of emergency.
So let me ask you, because it would seem that there is a demarcation here, that the president is well within his right to declare a state of emergency. But it would seem that where a lot of people have a problem is the fact that he suspended the governor and members of the House of Assembly. So are you saying that he could have declared the state of emergency, but he should have left the elected political actors?
He should have left the elected democratic institution in place. Because if you go to our constitution and you read our constitution very well, section 1, subsection 2 also talks about the procedure on how every part of this country will be governed through democratic means, and any other misuse will not be acceptable. So we cannot have a situation, we can't have a precedent being set that the fact that the president can sit down and remove someone that was also elected as he was elected. They are derived power from the constitution. The governor enjoys immunity. So section 308.
Yeah, so these are the gray areas. I mean, because some people will say, look, if this is the situation, I mean, if the situation was caused by political, you've cited the situation in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa, where President Goodluck Jonathan declared a state of emergency as a result of an internal and external incursion, because Boko Haram was both internal and external. Those were factors external to the state government. In this particular instance, this crisis in Rivers, and we all agree that it is a crisis, has been caused by the political actors in the state. Is it really, will it be wise to still leave them? And the president, while speaking, and when he made that, he referred to the, not just security reports, he also referred to the Supreme Court judgment, which made reference to the governor acting like a despot when he demolished the River State House of Assembly. Do you think that it would still have been wise, for the president to have left these actors in place?
The president has to allow the legal process to continue to, dictate the pace of whatever we are doing in this country, as long as democracy is concerned. Because one, you talk about demolition. You talk about this case were not before. I said it when I came. They were not before the court. The court went on its own voyage and decided to, look at political issues instead of looking at the issues that were brought before them. The problem we have today is that we have a governor that is elected, that's enjoying immunity in section 308, that from civil and criminal prosecution, that was also giving vote just as the president was giving vote. And then we have the president sit down in his office, take quasi-judicial decisions, and then remove the governor. So we can't sit down and let's agree that this is the right thing to be done. You can look at the judgment of the Supreme Court in 2013 or so in the case of Lagos State, or you look at in 2006. You can't look at this decision that the Supreme Court has said no president has the power to remove an elected executive governor of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What we are saying is that we are putting fear into the minds of every other governor around Nigeria who might not share the same view, who might not have the same opinion as regards what the president wants to be done. There were crises in Lagos recently. Police moved into the State House of Assembly, but the president met with them. You meet with these people, even president meeting with them. Fubara belongs to the PDP. It doesn't determine that Fubara must take the policy of the president hook, line, and sinker. The president is
Well, we'll get back to that conversation in Abuja shortly, but Mr. Ugumadu is still right here with us. Well, I'm sure you want to make a statement or two about some of the things that you've heard Mr. Ame say.
Well, I think largely we're on the same sync. He re-echoes the sentiment that I've expressed here. Those sentiments are founded on the law, this time around the Constitution, which is the ground norm. But I think the additional point to make is to remind us that in this whole business of nation building, and once we have accepted as a people to practice federalism, we must carefully understand what it entails. You see, it is the juxtaposition of power at different tiers of government, essentially the national and the constitutive states that make up the Federation of Nigeria. What is to be added to that is that both the federal government and the subnational governments are almost autonomous. So the principle of federalism recognizes the power that exists at that level, as well as the power that exists at the subnational level. So if a people within a state have elected through their civic rights to entrust a particular person to lead them as the governor, it will be far-flung in the expectation of the Constitution that is, regulating our conduct and the processes, that same person can be suspended. Please, I like the words to be clear. It is not removal, it is suspension. The process of removal of a governor is clearly and distinctly provided for under Section 188 of the Constitutions, and the procedures are well spelled out, quite more elaborate than what we're discussing at the moment. Suspension, as the word goes, is a temporary thing, which is why the Constitution envisages that you can only do this for a maximum of 6 months in the first instance, but can be renewed. That this time around, it is not by the president. Please, we should look at the Constitution. It is the National Assembly, by a resolution, that can extend that time, having been initially proclaimed by the president.
But, if you look at Section 11 as well, Mr. Ogumari,
yep,
as Mr. Ame mentioned earlier, it talks about the fact that the democratic and constitutional institutions should be maintained. But in the declaration of Mr. President, 2 arms of government in a subnational unit of the Federation are right now on suspension. The president was explicit about that. There are other dramatis personae. We'll come to that in a minute. But the fact that the president recognizes there is a governor who ought to have taken some actions, but for one reason or the other didn't take those actions. There is a House of Assembly which ought to have done some things and taken decisions to ensure that there is safety, peace, and sustained public order. They didn't do those things, and consequently, the president recognizes in 305, the Constitution recognizes that the president can step in Section 305. But Section 11 underscores the fact that the president cannot unilaterally, or should not unilaterally, suspend the governor of a state or the state legislators.
So the same point that I'm making. In fact, you have reinforced that same...
But now the president has done that.
So this is why the controversy and resentments and outright rejection is coming.
So can we say
the Nigerian Bar Association has, and I'm proud to have my president issued us, by the way, I am the alternate chair of the Citizens Liberty Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association. Now, it is not, no one is naive or oblivious of developments leading up to this stage in Rivers State. And I have had cause to write about the political economy of crisis in Rivers State, to say this is not just any other state. We understand all of those. But the constitution that we all swore, that the political actors all swore to abide by, made a very elaborate consideration of instances such as this and instituted thresholds. You see, if you claim that there are flashpoints, violent behaviors, you must also be able to benchmark that with what the Constitution expressly says. It is not all manner of skirmishes, all manner of disturbances that can lead to that point where the president can invoke this power.
You still haven't really responded.
Please
to the
put your question much more clearer.
The point that I'm making is, okay, maybe I should put it straight up.
Very well.
Is the president out of line to make a declaration that says a governor that was validly elected and legislators that are validly elected are suspended from office? Is it a valid, constitutionally valid declaration to
My
make?
answer is that the president was out of line to have said that. Does he have the right to proclaim a state of emergency? Certainly, that right is contained in Section 305. Does he have the right to suspend? He didn't remove, he suspended. He suspended both the governor and members of the State House of Assembly. My answer to that is no. Why? It is because within the limits of the constitutional provision that he invoked in the declaration of this proclamation, nowhere is it contained that the president can suspend. Whether or not it has happened in the past does not rectify or validate what he has done.
The implication is then, when the president suspends, declares a state of emergency, what should that imply for a state governor and the legislators who announce us? If they were to remain in office, what should be their constitutional position when the president declares a state of emergency?
You know, in your preliminary introduction, it talks about the gaps. These gaps are already playing out here.
Okay.
Because if we were to easily analyze this situation as it has occurred and take the position we are taking at the moment, we should be able to also identify within the provisions of this section what will be the fate. Because, you know, in my remark I said, what then is the implication of this declaration? In my view, what could happen, or what ought to happen, is that where the president makes this proclamation, again, within the time that we're in, where the National Assembly is not in recession, within 2 days, within 48 hours of that proclamation, gets ratification from the National Assembly, I think 2/3 majority, that consolidates that action. It ratifies it. What then should happen is that there should be, very clearly, a kind of attention, national attention, on that particular state, either by way of deployments to deal, by the way, you know it is not done as a matter of course. You must have established that the state is either at war, the state is at the imminent threat of war, or there is either natural disaster or invasion, as the case may be. That concentration, that ability to move from the national federal government and refocus all the powers of the country in that state, which would have been illegal without a state of emergency, can now be accommodated and then carried on.
Well, I guess
while the governor is the governor, while members of the State House of Assembly remain members of State House of Assembly.
Now, there are those who say that
with the full cooperation of this additional effort to take care of the pre-existing situation that we are trying to solve.
I'm sure that my colleagues in Abuja, my colleague in Abuja and the guests, they are also raring to go here. But just this one quick one. There are those who would say that we are discussing the constitutional and the institutional issues that this declaration has raised. But we aren't yet talking about the political. In fact, in the president's declaration, the president was very clear about the position or the role expected of the governor of the state. The legislators have various constituencies that they represent, but the governor has one constituency, that's the entire state, right? So perhaps expectedly, a little more is expected of the governor. In the build-up to this political impasse, there is a particular dramatis personae that was not mentioned in the president's speech. Is the president saying that that fellow is a persona non grata in this issue?
Well, I would have expected that one will have, I imagine that you are referencing the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. It came as a shock to me, not as a lawyer, but as a Nigerian, and one who is even from that part of the country, and who clearly have monitored the whole trajectory of this impasse up until where we now find ourselves, that if it met the convenience of Mr. President to single out the governor of Rivers State, lampooned him, as we heard him say, clearly, and in my view, subjectively, interpreted some of his actions or omissions, and left Mr. Wike in all of his calculations, then he has effectively stoked the debate around the political permutations and the way the people now see it. This is so because we didn't just get to the point where we are. This is a state that had been enveloped in very serious, if you like, intractable. About a year ago, it was actually May 2024, I did an article that I captured Wiki, a perfect template for Fubara's engagement. In my view, I had identified that it was going to be a long-drawn battle. And no sooner than he took over, or the reins of power in Rivers State, than we began to see what was very baffling to most Nigerians. You know, and of course, the slippery slope from the burning of the State House of Assembly to all of the efforts that the political actors made, the elders of the state in trying to resolve it, even the intervention of Mr. President, even some of us were not too comfortable that problems of Rivers State must have to get to Abuja before they could find solution. All of those didn't pay off. The big question to ask was, why were they not able to find a resolution around these issues? It is from that angle that one would have thought that by equal measure, the president, if he had decided to exercise his powers in the way and manner he has done, should have been able to rein in all the actors. And the actors are known.
Really?
Yes.
What will the president do that he didn't do? All he could do before now was attempt political interventions. Let's see if our guest in Abuja also has perspective about that. Okay, well, just in one sentence.
In the way and manner he has singled out the governor, taken the steps that has now suspended him, he would have also done something about his minister. I mean, the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. That way, you are balancing the aggression that has sustained this battle and made it intractable for as long as it has lasted, to the detriment of the people of Rivers State.
Was this intervention, this state of emergency, was it, in your opinion, a constitutional issue or a political issue?
Well, it ought to be a constitutional issue.
Okay.
Essentially because the president merely invoked his powers under the Constitution. However, they were political developments leading up to the exercise of that constitutional power.
Are these political issues legislated in the Constitution?
Well, if you talk about presentation of budgets, for instance, if you talk about appointment of commissioners by the state government.
Some of those issues are arguable because in the public eye, the governor did try. Let's see if Abuja is ready for us now. We're running out of time. Go ahead, Markwe.
Well, thank you, Ayo. Interestingly, Mr. Peter Ame's statement released by, is it released by you now, the CUPP? The CUPP, did make reference to that part, also noting that the president did not blame the minister of the FCT. Very clearly here, they said President Bola Tinubu's broadcasters raised eyebrows, with many noticing that he solely blamed Sim Fubara for the political impasse while conveniently ignoring his minister of FCT, Wike. This blatant omission suggests that the president has taken sides, sparking concerns about his impartiality. So that is in the statement of the CUPP. But it does appear that the president, did envisage that perhaps that was going to be raised. And when you look at the reason why he did this state declaration of emergency, I'm just going to try and read something. He said, some militants had threatened fire and brimstone against their perceived enemy of the governor, who has up till now not disowned them. That's the president, speaking in his speech. He says, the latest security reports made available to me showed that between yesterday and today, there have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without the governor taking any action to curtail them. With all these and many more, no good and responsible president will stand by and allow the grave situation to continue without taking remedial steps prescribed by the Constitution to address the situation in the state, which, according to him, requires extraordinary measures to restore good governance, peace, order, and security. So it does appear that the president is particularly peeved that all of these militants that came out in the wake of the Supreme Court judgment, threatening fire and brimstone, and perhaps had started to wreak same on the nation's, on the pipelines, which, of course, supply the nations its needed means of sustenance. It does appear that that will be at the heart, maybe also, of course, security, but that's where it seems to be pointing at. What are your thoughts on this?
For me, I think the president, if he has time, to look at this all these statements by militants and does not have time to watch the media broadcast by the Minister of FCT, then there's a double standard. Because if these militants make their statement, there was nowhere they were mentioning that they were sent by the governor of the Rivers State. And every time the governor of Rivers State speaks on TV, he talks about peace, peace, peace. Why didn't the president take that into consideration? If the president is talking about that there were 2 pipelines within 24 hours, and that the governor of the Rivers State did not do anything about it, where does the Rivers State governor has the authority to give the chief of army staff command? The president is the chief executive, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and in charge of the Nigerian police. The appointing authority on both in all our security agencies. Yeah, but so he has more authority to be able to say, yes, I'm declaring state of emergency in Rivers, and I want more troops to be put there because of to guide our national infrastructure and take care of this issue. You don't lay the blame on where the blame should not be put, because the governor has no authority over troops. So what we are saying here is that there are more crises in Zamfara. In fact, there are places in Katsina where people are paying levies to Bandit. There are places where they have taken over our control. They are in the media. We see these things every day. A state of emergency have not been declared there. We have issues that Nigerians can't have access to electricity. We don't have state of emergency. Our schools are in dilapidated state. Look, this is more of a presidential overreach and a political decision than it has to do with constitution. Because there's no way under Section 305 that say the president has the authority to suspend or to remove a sitting governor or suspend the State House of Assembly that was duly put in place to make laws for the good governance and development of the state. Is the admiral going to be making the military decree to run the state? Or how is he going to run the state? So
the president did stipulate how he's going to do it.
The fact is,
it says the administrator would not make any new laws. He will, however, be free to formulate regulations as may be found necessary to do his job, but such regulations will need to be considered and approved by the Federal Executive Council and promulgated by the President of the state.
The Federal Executive Council have no such power. In Section 11 of Section 4 and 5, the power to absorb the function of the State Assembly was given to the National Assembly. The Federal Executive have no power. The President has no such power. We are running a federal system, like said by the guest in Lagos studio, that we have a federal system that have a federating unit with almost equal autonomous power, that you cannot be carrying the authority given to you, which you have specific function on how to run this country, and that is why you have how we also share our resources. So you cannot now stand up and use this power and say you want to govern the state when we know that even those governing that state today belongs to different political party from the one you belong to. So we need to be able to sit down as Nigerians and always discuss truth. Because if you don't save this democracy, the president has said in the past that Lagos State will use every constitutional authority available to them to defend that the state of emergency is not declared. And you have in 2013 the Attorney General of Lagos State and Attorney General in the case between Attorney General of Lagos State and Attorney General of the Federation, where the Supreme Court said no president has that such power.
So do you think that it should be tested in the court then?
It should be tested in the court, but why do we always want to do things because we have authority?
No.
Because I'm saying this is that if we had a federating unit where there are national guys under the disposal of the state governors, would we have this kind of situation?
Some people will say perhaps we shouldn't get there. I mean, that this is not going to stand unless the National Assembly approves.
The National Assembly cannot even approve the suspension of the governor. They don't have the power.
No, what I'm saying is the state of emergency.
Yes, they have
it would seem that there are two issues, and I think it's very important for Nigerians to delineate these issues. So the state of emergency that was declared, and then the governor and the State House of Assembly suspended, you know, in the president's speech. And I think that basically, while some people also say, because I think that the NBA, you know, argues that, you know, the situation in Rivers had not yet reached a level where a state of emergency should have been declared. That's the stance of the NBA. They also think the president does not have any powers to remove. So on the two issues, they are clear. But on the state of emergency, which is not in contention, whether or not the president has the powers to do so, he cannot do so unilaterally. He still has to approach the National Assembly, which has 2 days if it's in session. And we know for a fact the National Assembly is currently in session. I mean, it has 2 days if it's in session. It has 10 days if it's not in session. So do you think that the debate, you know, how the president says it's sent into the National Assembly, do you think that there is still room for this to be, you know, to not come into effect since the National Assembly has yet to finally give its approval on it?
For me, I think when it comes to the state of emergency to try to protect our national infrastructure, the president can go ahead and declare that. Because we don't want a situation where the economy is not working well, where there are no resources to be shared for the federating unit. But what we do not want is this overreach and those advising the president in trying to jeopardize his political credentials before he became president.
So you think the National Assembly should also delineate the two?
Of course, they should. They should be able to delineate the two, because you cannot have these two. What you don't have power over, you shouldn't even be discussing it. Because there's an hijack of a process right now. Because the State House of Assembly have issued notice of impeachment. The governor was supposed to respond to them within a specific period of time, within 30 days or so. So why are they not waiting for that to happen? That is Section 188 of our Constitution. We have democracy. We are running a representative democracy, an electoral democratic process, where the people is the way it has been enshrined in our Constitution, that it has been directed through multi-party democracy.
So there are those who say that the president, perhaps, you know, through some, I don't know, you might say it's warped, but some people say, oh, maybe the president is actually trying to intervene in a manner that actually saved the governor. Do you think that could be a situation?
No, it shouldn't save the governor. If the process goes and the chief judge set up a panel to investigate the governor and is found wanting through a democratic and constitutional process, it should go. But if that process is not taken, and we take this quasi process, then we are also undermining the Constitution. For us, is to give legitimacy to the Constitution, is to give life to the Constitution, and to also avoid a state where, in a multi-democratic system as established in section 221 to 229, 210, that we shall have multi-party democratic system, that the opposition no longer can breathe in their state, that the opposition governors are sleeping and they can't take decision. And when they hear a rat run through their back door in their government house, they think a state of emergency will be declared for removing them. So because people talk about using all sorts of ritual and say that, oh, suspension. When a man is suspended, the man is technically removed. You can't perform any work. And even in the case of, all the judgment that have been removed, yes, when the president has authority to appoint, the president has authority to suspend. But the president did not appoint the governors. He did not appoint the State House of Assembly. They presented themselves for election through their various political parties by buying the form and then filling this form and then going through primaries, and even delegates also elected them. There are 2 layers of election. So for them to become candidates representing the party, jumping from aspirantship. So you now go to the ballot and the people queue up on a specific date slated for the election. They vote for their representative out of the multiplicity of choices that are before them. And then you say the president has the power to just undo that?
I want to know, what do you think should happen now? Because clearly it does appear that, I mean, you have said you have no problem with the president declaring a state of emergency. What you have a problem with is a suspension. Which you say is not backed by any law. And clearly, it was in a number of other people who have spoken, institutions that have spoken, individuals that have spoken, groups that have spoken have also, they also seem to be taking this stance with regards to the suspension of the governor and the State House of Assembly. So what do you think should happen now? Do you think we should be hearing from perhaps the Attorney General? Do you think that we should wait for the outcome from the National Assembly? And okay, well, I think I should ask you that first, and I'll ask you the next question.
I think that the president, when you look at public opinion, and you read the dailies, you go to broadcast media and watch what is happening in the news, you know that Nigeria is not supporting the decision to put a stop to a democratic process in Rivers State. So if you look at it, nobody that cannot make mistakes. You can reverse that and say, no, this is not what we meant. I think we need to protect our national infrastructure. Let him be the task force chairman to do that and allow the democratic governor who was elected by his people to continue to manage it. Because there's a law that says this state assembly, now they can't make laws for good governance and development of the state. The governor cannot execute these laws for good governance and development of the state. So you cannot have that process. And you see, you are going to cause voter apathy. You are going to cause a situation where people start to lose interest in the democratic process. Because if you allow this democratic engagement, or no matter how furious it is, to play out, people will learn through the process. That is how you establish precedent in a democratic system. You allow people to play out, they come for impeachment proceedings, he appears before the panel, he gives his report why decisions were taken, and he said this, and then we have a record to show this is what should have been done. Not the fact that you see, because now we're there. The other parties, the PDP that the governor belongs to was not there. The other parties that are in the House of Assembly, they were not there. So the president sat down with his advisors and then took a decision that also put all the blame on the governor and took away the blame from the other parties that are open actors in this engagement.
Mr. Peter Ame, certainly we know that this is the beginning of a developing story. We have to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Mr. Peter Ame is the National Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties. Thank you so much for coming to our studios.
Thank you.
And we also had Mr. Malaki Ugumadu, who is a legal practitioner, speaking to us from our Lagos studios. I'm afraid this is where we have to wrap up the program this beautiful Wednesday morning. I can't believe it's Wednesday already. Thank you so much for watching. We see your feedback, Professor Enakena, Sam Omorui, Nia Folabi, and Mr. Festus Akimboyewa. We hope that we'll be able to take them perhaps tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusef.
And I'm Ayo. Marking already, reactions are coming even from the government in Rivers State. We'll bring you more on Channels Television subsequently. Stay with us.